Welcome, bienvenue. My name is Renée Ketcham, and I am the curator of cultural offerings at AFUSA. I'm so thrilled to welcome all of you to my conversation with Kristin Espinasse, author of A Year in French Life, on the topic of words as keys, stories from a French life. AFUSA is the largest Alliance Française network in the world, helping 26,000 learners of French each year learn French, live French, and love French with the Alliance Française. Please see our video. This program is in partnership with the Renaissance Française USA, the American Society of the French Academic Palms, and AATF, the American Association of Teachers of French. We have some fabulous national events coming up soon, so save the dates by visiting afusa.org for Aimé le Duc Huguette, Cara Black's post-war Paris novel. It's brand new, and we'll be interviewing Cara on December 3rd. We have a wonderful series, Notre Dame de Paris, Before the Fire. It's in three sessions, so please, again, sign up on afusa.org, and then Dory Greenspan will be back for her Life Between Two Ovens, baking anytime from Paris to New York, just in time for the holidays. Few logistics. Please stay on mute during the presentation, stay on speaker view, and we'll put all questions in the chat to discuss with Christy after the talk. If you have any technical issues, sign back in after a couple of minutes using the original Zoom link. This event is being recorded for our YouTube channel, and the total runtime is 1 hour. I'm really honored to introduce Kristin Espinasse. Originally from Arizona, Kristin moved permanently to France in 1992, where she now lives with her husband, Jean-Marc, and their family. Author of 4 books, including A Year in French Life and Words in a French Life. She is also the creator of a long-running blog, French Word a Day, started in 2002 with readers worldwide. Christy is the recipient of La Renaissance Française Award Médaille d'Or des Valeurs Francophones for contributions to French culture abroad. To talk about this wonderful award, I'm honored to introduce Margot Steinhardt. Margot is the president of La Renaissance Française USA, and she is a past board member of the Federation of Alliance Française USA. Welcome, Margot.
Bonjour. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kristin. The Renaissance Française is a public, nonprofit organization that operates under the patronage of several French government ministries, including the Ministries of Foreign Affairs, Defense, and Education. Founded in 1916 by a French president, Raymond Poincaré, promotes the French culture and has since expanded its mission to include promoting the French language and Francophone cultures globally. The Renaissance Française USA is a delegation of the international organization, which was founded 16 years ago by Jane Robert, who was a past president of the Federation of Alliance Française. Over time, the American delegation has provided grants to educational and cultural programs in the U.S., and these are made possible by our donors. An important part of this mission is to recognize people and persons who have raised awareness of the French language and Francophone cultures among people living in the United States. For example, leaders in the fields of education, music, government, cuisine, sports, historical preservation, and communication. Typically, annual ceremonies are held each year under the auspices of the honorary president, the ambassador of France in the United States. Kristin Espinasse received la Médaille d'Or des Valeurs Francophones de la Renaissance Française because of her writings, blogs, magazine columns, and books. From France for a wide American audience for over 20 years, she is certainly worthy of this recognition. Her blogs now reach over 17,000 subscribers. Because of the pandemic, Kristin's award ceremony was delayed until June 2025 with a special ceremony which was conducted for her by the international president, Denis Fada, in Paris. And this is a description of the medal, and you can see the medal that she received at that time. And this medal recognizes those who devote themselves to the development or tightening of linguistic or cultural ties between France and other countries sharing the French language, or to the development of the French language and culture in their country. I do have a question for Kristin related to this medal. So, Kristin, you've written that receiving this award has given you a coup de pouce. Might you elaborate on the importance of La Médaille d'Or des Valeurs Francophones for you both personally and professionally? Kristin?
Well, hello, Margot. Hello, everybody that's here today. A special thanks to my readers who I can see some of them sending messages right now on the screen. And thank you, Renee and Melissa, and to the 4 organizations who are partnering for this wonderful webinar. It's such an honor to be here. And to answer your question, personally, it's extremely meaningful to me to receive this award. It's a validation, it's an encouragement, and it's a coup de pouce. We're looking at that word on the screen right now. A coup de pouce is a nudge to continue on this path that I'm on of sharing words, French words, stories, and culture from France. In the photo, I wanted to point out that's my husband, Jean-Marc. We have Margot right here next to Jean-Marc. That's Denis Fada, the international president of the Renaissance Française. And that's me receiving my award last June. And it came with the certificate, which, again, it's a tremendous encouragement and a nudge that has kept me on the path that I'm on. It's a path that began back in 2002, when I was living in a little medieval village, and as a young mother of a 5 and a 7-year-old, and I was looking, I guess, for my own identity. You know, what did I want to do next? And so I started a blog. Blogging had been around for a year or two, and I really had always wanted to write, and I decided to start a blog called French Word a Day and begin to share stories of the cultural differences and then anchor each story with a word. So the first word, by the way, was bosser. And many of you may know that bosser means to work hard. And around that time, I just made a promise to myself that I was going to take this blog and run with it. I was going to post every single day a French word a day. And eventually I was contacted by a teacher in one of my readers, and she said, "Christy, if you continue this way, I'm afraid you're going to burn yourself out." So that was the beginning of me listening to my lovely readers who have really brought me all the way to where I am today. Their encouragement, their strength and love, and their wisdom has been such a help. And then in 5 years ago, I received an email from Bernard Duhaime, the then president of the Renaissance Française, with the incredible news that they were going to award me the gold medal. And not only that, but it would be presented in Washington, D.C. That was just amazing. My mom ran out and bought me this beautiful suit. And long story short, the pandemic arrived next, and the award ceremony was canceled. So I continued on my way for a while, and sadly, Bernard Duhaime passed away. And another few years went by, and I received an email from Margot Steinhardt of the Renaissance Française, the new president, saying that we haven't forgotten you. We haven't forgotten you, and we would like to present this award for you in Paris, and just steps away from the Champs-Élysées. and that it would be the international president, Denis Fada, who would personally pin the award. So what can I say? Personally, it's extremely touching. It's a coup de pouce. Um, Professionally, it has brought me here with an amazing audience, these four organizations. And a lot of the people here today are quickly becoming my mentors because of the eloquence and well, just being a wonderful example. And again, I can't mention enough my lovely readers who have held my hand all along the way. So thank you so much for this opportunity to once and for all dire merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Kristin.
De rien.
Thank you, Kristin. And we're looking at, I don't know if you can see on your screen, all these hearts and
Yes,
applause, and this is extraordinary. Look at this.
it really is. I'm not even sure where to look. I'm seeing hearts. I think the camera is right there. Excuse me if I'm looking to the side because I see one of my lovely readers, Laura. I can see, and I'm not quite sure where to look actually. So.
Well, let's work through this joy that's in the chat. So again, let's start to talk about the title of our conversation today: Words as Keys: Stories from a French Life.
With pleasure.
So my first question to you, and I think we have a slide that's coming up, is what inspired you to gather your blog essays into a book, and why this particular year, 2024?
You know, the blog, which has been going on for 23 years, there are 23 years worth of archives. And to see them every year, to see the stories that I write disappear into the archives, and that's pretty much the end of it, is c'est dommage. It's a little bit too bad. So I decided last year that I would collect them all into a book that could be as my mom says, a coffee table edition with full page photos of our town. And this having a book also makes it possible for people to gift it to each other, people that, believe it or not everybody has the internet. I personally know people who don't have an internet. So it can be gifted to people who aren't familiar with my website. And also, it can once again appear in classrooms, as a previous book of mine has. Words in a French Life is used in many high schools and colleges. And this is a perfect book for that because it's a book I would have loved to have had when I was in high school taking French and in college. A book about a very lively French family, Franco-American family, living their life here in the south of France. So also I wanted the book to be in libraries, and a lot of my readers, thanks to them, they've gone into their libraries and they've requested the book. So it's available for free in libraries, including the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris, because when I was self-publishing this book, one of the laws in France is if you publish a book in France, you must give a copy to the Bibliothèque Nationale or be fined 75,000 euros. So it was with pleasure that I sent in a book.
And I think we have a slide that goes with this first question.
Partager, yes. I wanted to partager. The idea behind the book is to partager the stories. That's my dog Smokey on a nearby beach right here in La Ciotat.
So my next question, the book is a year-long portrait of your life. How important were the visuals that you included in the book?
Well, the visuals, let's see, I think we have the next slide, which is vivifier, which means lively. And there's my mom at the market, by the way, and with her iconic fish purse she got in Mexico. So the visuals bring my family and our town to life. You know, this is where my memoir is a little bit different than other memoirs. Most memoirs don't have full page photos, and every single chapter has a full page photo of of my town. And I think we have a map so that I can show you on the map where my town is. So we're in La Ciotat, which a lot of people find difficult to pronounce. So for the record, La Ciotat is pronounced La Ciotat. And we are east of Marseille and very near Cassis. And you can see how close we are to Aix-en-Provence, about 45 minutes just south. So La Ciotat is a very eclectic town. It wasn't a very popular town until recently. It has a history in international or industrial and international shipping. And recently that has all changed to yacht maintenance. So we have billion-dollar yachts that come through here from Facebook, from Amazon, from but mostly that's not what I want to focus on. Our town is has a rugged coastline, turquoise blue sea with giant red boulder rocks, and it's known for being the birthplace of cinema. And this is where pétanque began, right here in our town, where the game of boule began, if you are familiar with that. So the photos were very important, and there are over 150 full-size photos in the book in color.
Thank you so much. And I don't think any of us knew that La Ciotat was the home of French cinema as well as Boule. And I know that if anybody comes to visit you, they must go to Cassis because some of the best mussels are in Cassis. I've been there many times. So the next question, in a year in your book, you reflect on family, language, place, and a lot of transitions. Which among these is the most important to you in your book?
Well, definitely family. You know, it's through family. We have a very, I think lively will just be the theme of this webinar. We have a lively village. This is a lively talk. And we have a very lively family here. I think my readers will attest to that. We are a multi-generational family here until very recently when my daughter just moved to New York. Until very recently, I had, well, let's go over the family members. There's my mom, who spent most of her life in Mexico after she raised us. And my mom is an artist who moved here about 7 years ago. She lives here with us. My husband, who's a winemaker, and my son has followed in his footsteps. He is a wine exporter for Chateau La Tour d'Évêque. And then there's my daughter, who is always keeping us on our toes with whether she's in fashion, whether she's a bartender, whether she's currently in New York in a classroom with preschoolers. There is, well, myself telling these stories, the narrator, and my dog. And we're not done yet because we have a couple of turtle doves. Well, tourterelles. I always want to say turtle doves, but they are tourterelles, which are collared doves, and they really are family members. They knock on the door every morning for their breakfast. So they all figure into the story. So from the family, the stories just, they are definitely grist for the mill.
And I think we have some slides that go with this particular question. Do we
So
have a
let's
photo?
see. Le Bercail. This is our house it's a house built in 1960s. And Le Bercail is synonymous for family. There are other synonyms, but Le Bercail is actually a sheepfold. That's the actual traduction, sheepfold. And these are all my sheeps here. This is our Bercail. So that's John Mark walking the dogs. That's my grand dog there. My grand dog, and that's Richie, our American Shepherd.
It's beautiful. I love the architecture of the house.
Thank
Well,
you.
another question, just keeping in the theme of words and your book. As a writer, mother, wife, and daughter, Yeah, and you've lived there. You've lived between two cultures, the American and the French. Did you see your own identity evolve in writing your book, A Year in French Life?
It's a hard question, but I'll tell you, these are great questions that really get me thinking. Definitely, my identity has evolved. A lot of people like to come to France and move to France for that very reason, to to find out who they really are. And I'll never forget when I came to France as an exchange student from Arizona State University. I came here in 1989 to Lille, which is way up in the north, Lille, freezing cold Lille. And every morning I would walk to school and I would pass a bookstore, and in the window there was a book, Qui suis-je? Qui suis-je? I think we have a slide where you can see the word Qui suis-je? There's my dog wondering, who am I? And so this book intrigued me, Qui suis-je? And I worked out the meaning as a new French learner, who am I? And I thought that was so funny that the French, who I deemed perfect in fashion and architecture and art, in speaking, that they would be interested in a book, Qui suis-je? Who am I? So yes, the writing this book definitely, I saw my identity evolve with each story, with each chapter. With every chapter talks about pretty much a challenge or something happening, an event. And it's the way that I usually come into this really resisting whatever event it is, whether it's our plumbing that's broken down, or whether my dog has run off from the farmer's market, or whether my daughter comes to me with a new career idea. And usually I'm pretty, resistant of all of this. But by the end of the day, the end of the story, I've I've learned, if I've let go enough to just, follow along and be a good family member, I find out who I am through these stories. If I'll just give people a chance to, go through this experience instead of resisting so much. So I think we're all multifaceted. In any given situation, we can see a different part of who we are overall. So
Well, and as you've said when we talked before about this question, that this sort of let you let go from this resistance.
yes, and it's an ongoing, I think for the rest of my life, I will resist. I wake up in the morning and I have my ideas. I'm going to get to my computer. I'm going to do this or that. And then my family wakes up. And then we have to just go with the flow of what's happening. So,
I think it's something we all need to learn. So my next question, as this is a memoir, daily life and every day, as I said, everything is featured. How does your everyday life, from language mistakes, chaos at home, health issues with your mom, a husband who's away a lot, how do all of these things teach a broader lesson in life and determine your identity?
well, it's really what we just talked about. It's teaching me to let go, and that when we let go, grace always follows. We let go, and the grace of the moment follows. And I have a really good example of that. A couple of years ago, my husband and I went to visit the island of Brea. Now, I can't pronounce it. Brea, Brehat. And by the way, I think this slide is Je te suis. So there's John Mark on the island of Brea, marching away, walking away. And so um, I remember that day. We had one day to be on that island, and it's not a very big island, but John Mark wanted to visit the entire island on that day. Just trompe all over the island. Do we say trompe or is that French? Tromper. Walk all over that island. And I had ideas. It was raining, it was muddy, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice to duck into a cafe and just watch the world go by. And a lot of my struggle is just decision making, just struggle, struggle, struggle. I spend a lot of time trying to decide, And that day I was trying to decide, well, do I want to do this, follow him north, south, west? And all of a sudden I just heard myself say to him, Je te suis, je te suis. And it was just so easy to say that. I will follow you, I'll follow you. So I followed Jean-Marc to the north of the island. I followed him west. I followed him east, through the mud, through the rain. And by the time we got to the south of the island, it was lunchtime. So you can see that was a very small island. And we had a beautiful lunch. I had the coffee that I wanted earlier, and I had pockets full of experiences by letting go and just saying to life and to my husband, I will follow you. So I encourage anybody out there to do that if you struggle like I do about making decisions. And that's the bigger lesson in my book. Every chapter is a little bit of a struggle, just like the one I've just mentioned to you. And we have to just let go. And when we let go, grace will show up. The grace of the moment will show up and it will carry us right through. And practically every single story in my book has a sort of underlying theme of that.
It's a very profound chapter in the book, and I know we talked a couple of times about how to conjure up a question for it, but it's very moving. So those who've read the book, I'm sure, remember that. For your readers who don't speak a word of French and who will never live in France, how have they responded to the book? And what is your real message to them?
Well, first of all, I mean, let's use my mom for an example. She's been here 7 years and she still doesn't speak French, although she is in France. You don't have to speak French. You don't have to come to France to just enjoy learning about this culture and to enjoy these stories. I think that although we are a Franco-American family, we live in the south of France, it sounds very exotic but I think that everybody will relate to our family and to our stories, whether you identify with, you know, my husband, my mom, my son. And I I think that, you just don't have to speak French or even live here to I think the next slide is dépaysement. And that means to just have a change of scenery, to when you're reading these stories and looking at all the photos across all the chapters, you're really going to feel a change of scenery and hopefully just want to keep on discovering.
Well, and that's also very much in keeping with the whole mission of the Alliance Française worldwide to love things French. Many people will never speak French or never go to France, but they can be an armchair traveler with you and learn about your family and learn about everything French um, from afar.
Yes, and we will adopt you too. We will adopt you into our I guarantee if you just come over to my blog and we'll adopt you.
Thank you, Christy. All right. What was the biggest challenge that you had in writing and editing this collection? That is really, and this has struck me enormously. It's very personal, so I can imagine that the editing process and the writing process must have been challenging in that respect.
Yes, super challenging. I'm going to show you the next slide. It's oser. Oser means to dare. Photo was taken pretty recently, actually. To dare. These women are daring to go out into the water on a cold November morning. And for me, the biggest challenge is to dare to write about myself and others. You wouldn't know it because I have a very public blog and I do talk a lot about some um, personal issues, but I'm actually a very shy person, very much an introvert, a homebody. And so I do want to protect my privacy. And at the same time, I want to share, real life, really what's happening. I've never been somebody who likes small talk. If you sit next to me on the plane, well, I don't do this anymore, but I don't want to do small talk. I want to ask you, what do you think about this? And I want to write about that too. So the biggest challenge is to dare to write about parts of myself and things. And an even bigger challenge is to know the limits of who I can talk about in my family. My family, they are my characters in my books. And so I've been over careful. My sister Heidi, who's watching now from Denver, she just always tells me, Christy, you just worry so much. You don't have to, you don't have to ask permission all the time. I just got a big heart from another Heidi. Um, and I'm very protective of my family, but yet there are so many fantastic stories to tell. I mean, you're really only getting the surface of it all. Um, so that's the biggest challenge, to be very careful and to, not miss the opportunity to share something that's deeply meaningful and touching, but at the same time, not go over boundaries. And I think I've done a really, really good job doing that. I don't think I've really gotten in too much trouble. Um, I just need to have more confidence to continue and maybe just ask more people for permission.
So maybe we should go to the next slide, because the next question is sort of in the same vein. And you speak about, this is very personal, and you've chosen very carefully what you speak about personally, but that's also given you the opportunity to be very authentic in this book.
Mhm.
Can you speak to that?
Yes, so I've chosen this wonderful French expression. By the way, occasionally I will share an expression from another language because when you come to France, you will be hearing a lot more than French in France. So back to your question, chi va piano va sano. Sorry to all the Italians out there if I've mispronounced this. Chi va piano va sano means he who goes slowly goes safely. So I think I did probably answer this in the previous question, but just to, you know, uh, take my time and really think about something before I write it. Right now, I'm training my daughter. I'm encouraging my daughter to write, and I would really love it if she, little by little, we start to share this blog that I have. There's a younger audience out there that wants to learn French, and my daughter is 28. And Chi va piano va sano, this is really one of the first in my teaching writing class to my daughter. One of the first things I'm going to teach her is just, think about it, think about who's involved, and as the boat we're seeing slowly and steadily. And
That's
that's
great
how
advice.
that's how I kind of maintain this balance. I'm a person who's always read memoirs. I love memoirs. That's why I write memoirs. And but memoirs are very, very, very personal and hopefully authentic.
Yeah, and that's what's interesting about your book. There is a level of authenticity that transcends just merely the personal information that you decide to share with your audience. Um, Next question. How do you want your readers, and maybe some of your readers will react to this, how do you want your readers to react or reflect after reading the book? And have you had any responses from readers that surprised you? And I think we have a slide coming up for that one, même pas peur.
Yes, this is one of my favorite expressions. The French love their expressions as well. And some of them you hear over and over, and I'll hear a French girl or hear a French guy. They'll say, like, let's go swimming in November in the water. And they'll say, même pas peur, not even scared. And that's how I would like people to approach the French language, the French culture. maybe even reading a memoir, même pas peur, not even scared. And what else did I want to say about that? The one thing I would like readers to take away is an appetite for more France, more French, and hopefully more of these stories. I'll continue writing these books. Sometimes I have this self-doubt about it being just more of the same. I continue to write these blog posts, and they may seem to be more of the same, du pareil au même, more of the same stories. But, you know, we're moving forward into the future, and they change as we go. So I just would like to say, keep coming back, keep coming back. And I've got so many more words to share with you, so many more phrases and parts of France. Recently we took my mom to the Camargue, and that was a beautiful experience. And there'll be more travels like that with mom. And so keep coming back for more culture, words, more hopefully authenticity.
Well, I think that's great advice to all of us to keep coming back and keep learning from you and keep being surprised and being moved. I mean, that's what this book is all about. So I love this question. And it's one of I think it's the last questions that we have before we can open it up to our audience. Um, your mother raised you to see things, and I quote, your mother raised you to, quote, see things that are not as though they are. Can you elaborate?
Yes. I think we have picture here. That's one of my favorite pictures of my mom. This is taken at our second vineyard. We've lived on two vineyards, by the way. John Mark is a winemaker, and there's my mom at the second vineyard that we had up until 7 or 8 years ago. And just up the coast here, by the way, in Saint-Cyr-sur-Mer. And well, in one word to answer that question, see things that are not as though they are. Faith. Have faith that maybe your situation isn't exactly what you want it to be at the moment, but visualize and have faith that it will change. And my mom and I have what we call trailer park dreams. Trailer park dreams, and mom will wake up and she'll say to me, I had a trailer park dream. And a couple months later, I might say, Mom, I had a trailer park dream. And what we're talking about is where I grew up. I grew up in a trailer park with my mom and my sister. And we grew up in a single wide trailer on the west side of Phoenix, just off the freeway exit, a long way from France. And my mom was a single mom and had a full-time job. But when she wasn't working, she's an artist at heart, and she is very much a bohemian, exotic artist. And so she had those aluminum walls of our trailer busted out, and she had a giant window put in. And outside, she created a beautiful garden full of flowers and exotic trees. And inside the house, every wall was covered with books. We had our living room, wall-to-wall books. There were books in the kitchen. My sister and I shared a room. My mom had bookshelves installed. There were bookshelves in her room. And all those books were from all over the world, including stories about France. And you can see in this photo a straw hat. Well, my mom had a hat like that when I was growing up, and it said Saint-Tropez on the side. Saint-Tropez. And I thought, Saint-Tropez, what is Saint-Tropez? And here we are, mom and I and our whole beautiful family, Jean-Marc, the kids, Max, Jackie. And my mom and I often look at each other and we say, here we are on the French Riviera. And now we are dreaming about actually both places are so charming and close to our hearts that it's a charmed life either way. So there's an example of a personal story that I hesitate to share because it's very personal. And I hope it inspires anybody out there who may think that they're not good enough to learn the French language. I know that was my case. I barely graduated high school. I had to call my the professor, not the professor, but the president of high school. What is it called? Not the president of high school. Um,
Headmaster,
the high school president will say. I had to
Principal.
call
Mhm.
principal on
principal.
graduation day because I was such a poor student. Out of 500 students at Chaparral High School in Scottsdale, Arizona, where we ended up, and I had to ask him, "Am I going to graduate today?" Because I was such a bad student. And I got into Arizona State University on, what is that word? Probation. And by the way, my sister and I were the first in our family to graduate from high school, from college. And I'm going on and on because we're at the last question, and this is, well, another personal story. And it was once I was in Arizona State University on probation that I had to choose a major, and I didn't know what to do because I'm not a very good student. And I thought, well, Saint-Tropez, I'm going to choose French. And it was thanks to a French teacher that I'm here today because it was thanks to Madame Wallam. And I never got the chance to thank her. The biggest regret of my life because I could have and I didn't take the time to call her and thank her, Madame Wallam. And it was thanks to her that I continued on in French. She said she didn't care about all my papers that were marked up in red. What was important for her was that I was in class every day, I was learning French. And then she's the one that said to me, "Look, we're having an exchange program in France." And I thought, well, I'm not exchange program material. I'm not a good student. And she said, I encourage you. I encourage you to come along with us. And that's how I got to Lille. And by the way, I graduated with honors, cum laude, from a student who was almost a dropout in high school. And here I am
What a story.
teaching French. Finally, I'd like to say one thing that's extremely moving to me are the readers that I have who are so much more intelligent than I am, so much more wise than I am, and loving and adorable. And they will, if I have a mistake in my blog, I get a nice email. First, it always begins, "Thank you for the story." It always begins with something positive, and then they'll say, "Oh, by the way, there's just this little thing here." And it's been an enormously touching journey. And to be here today with these four organizations is just the top. It's really um, it's a real coup de pouce, which brings us around to the first expression.
Well, thank you, Christy, and thank you to Madame Wallam. I think that we are all, the hundreds of people on this Zoom, are very grateful to her for having given you that advice.
Yes.
I think we probably have some questions. There are 53 comments in the chat, so let's see where we are on the. Obviously, lots of hellos.
Oh, thank you.
Hang on, just let me look through some of these quickly. People from all over the world. So there's one reader that's been on your email on the email distribution of French Word a Day for 20 years.
Wow. Thank you.
Hang on, I'm looking for some questions. You're just these kudos to you is extraordinary. Bonjour from all over the country.
Renee and Christy, I see a question here from Christine
Perfect, thank you.
who says, I'm just curious, why do you always call your mom by her first name in your writing? And what do the French think about you calling her by her first name instead of mom?
Who asked that question, Christine?
Christine.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you very much. This is such a good question. So, in my blog, I need to distinguish between my mom, because I'm also a mom in the blog. I'm a mom to Jackie and Max. And so I need to distinguish between my mom and me in my blog when I'm telling stories. Does that make sense? So oftentimes I refer to her as Jules, which is her name is Julie, but she's gone by Jules ever since she's lived in Mexico. Jules, by the way, is a masculine name in France. So when we show up to doctor's appointments, they're always expecting a man. And I hope that answers the question. It's just to try to distinguish between me and my mom. So sometimes I'll refer to her as Jules or mom or grandma. It depends on what the story is about. I hope that answers this very good question.
Well, and you have another reader here who says your mom inspires me as well.
Oh, she inspires me every day. She she's amazing.
And there are a couple of wonderful comments. Basically, Susan Stillman says, a powerful transition from a trailer park in Phoenix to a beautiful life on the Côte d'Azur. Thank you for sharing. And then the following person, Sandrine, says, Mon Dieu, c'est un sujet difficile. Bravo. So there are thanks for that wonderful last question that you and I worked on. And then we have another question. Do you have another book in your plans?
Oh, who asked that question?
Right, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I should have said that. Sharon Howard.
Thank you, Sharon Howard. Yes, I'm working away on the next book, which is A Year in a French Life, Volume 2. And Volume 2 will have just as many full-size photos, of course, all different from the first book. And an exciting thing about Volume 2 is halfway through, my daughter begins contributing stories as well. So I hope it will reach a variety of people of all ages who might be interested in France, and in occasionally there's maybe vocabulary that younger people use, which I'll try to weave in. So that book will be available in March.
Oh, great.
Yes, I'm working away on it, and I will soon ask my readers if anybody would like to volunteer to proofread 300 pages. And this is what I did last time. It worked out beautifully. These lovely readers read through the book and pages of edits, and I really appreciate it.
What a welcome. What a gift of a project. So, and Eileen Walvord has written, you've encountered a lot of cultural differences. Would you comment on the difficulty of adjusting to some of them and others that have taught you a lot? I mean, you could probably talk about that for an hour, but are there any?
Well, yes, the ones that have affected me. You know, I the eating thing has really affected me because back home where I come from, the Southwest, maybe I can't speak to all of you from the Southwest, but we eat around 6 o'clock, 6:30. And so here in France, it's starts at 8:30. If you're invited out, 8:39. And I'll be going to a wedding here pretty soon, and dinner at that wedding will start at 10 p.m. And it's hard for me to get used to that. So that's one thing. And that goes along also with socializing and going out at night. I'm an early bird, early riser. And just like the nightclubs here, where they open after midnight, people show up after midnight. But thank God I was at one of those nightclubs where I met my husband after midnight.
Everything happens for a reason. Have you
Yeah.
ever written a story? So Kelly Sunshine, what a wonderful name. Have you ever written a story to share that your family asked you not to? And have they, I can't always been fine with the stories that you do share.
Kelly Sunshine, that sounds like my little sister. Is it Kelley?
Kelly.
Okay. Um, I don't think so. I don't think in going through our questions, I think I left out a lot earlier, but in the question that you asked me about what's a challenge, and I said, writing about family members. Well, John Mark has always said to me, you can write whatever you want about me as long as it's true. So that gives me a wide open door, but I don't think so. I'm so very careful. I have had my readers um, stand up for my mom. I've said something and I've had readers write me and say to me, you know, is it okay that how would your mom feel about you talking about the trailer park? I mean, maybe that's not very, so, I talk it over with my mom. How do you, it's nothing, it's where we were at that moment in time.
Mhm.
And so I don't think so. I'll have to ask my family, please write me if I ever have and let me know.
So a few more. I was going to ask you this question. Is the olive tree in your kitchen the same one that was your Christmas tree in the book?
Are you
That's
talking about this?
yes, yes.
This is very funny. This was a very scrawny, scrawny, scrawny tree about 5 hours ago. And I ran outside and I cut up a bunch of laurier, which is bay leaves. We have a bay leaf tree. My mom taught me this a long time ago. She does not like scrawny trees. If it's scrawny tree, throw it out. So I ran outside with my sécateur and I chopped off a bunch of the leaves from the tree and I stuck them in there to pump it up. So that's not the same tree, but that olive tree is in our garden right now and it will come back in a couple weeks. We have a beautiful ornamental olive tree that I'm using for our Christmas tree.
Well, I think we remember that from the book, and we have a new word, trompe-l'oeil. You created something amazing there in the back of your kitchen.
This year, yeah. Thank you.
Um, Another question, does Jackie have a plan for a blog? And asked by Muriel Tausink.
Thank you, Muriel. I think that she would like that. I think she would really enjoy doing that. For the moment, she is seeing how this all works behind the scenes on my blog. And then I think that could definitely be part of her future. Right now, we are taking turns. One day she'll write a story, one day I'll write a story.
Mm-hmm.
Although for the past 2 weeks, she's written the stories because I've been focused on this very exciting meeting we're in. So, yeah, I think so. She has another writing project coming up as well. So stay tuned.
Because one of the things, another one of your friends here, Susan Stillman, says, I look forward to having Jackie develop her own voice. I also love all that she does discovering New York.
Thank you, Susan. I met Susan years and years ago. I appreciate hearing from you here. Yes, now I've forgotten the question.
No, she's just saying you were just
Ah,
talking about Jackie, and she's get excited about
yeah.
Jackie developing her blog based on.
Well, thank you. That really touches me. I do have readers who've reached out encouraging Jackie. And, I was 35 when I started my blog. And Jackie always feels that she's behind. She's behind. I said, Jackie, I was 35 when I started my blog. You're 28, you're ahead of the game already. And
So
so,
a few more questions. And this is interesting. Do you always speak French at home from Linda?
hi, Linda. We speak a very strange franglais, which is, whatever comes first. We don't even really know what we speak anymore, to be quite honest. Um, and with my mom here, we make an effort to speak more English.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think Melissa, can you help me finish going?
Yeah,
I think we
there's a
got most. Yeah.
yeah, there's a
Go
question
ahead.
here from Bob, who says, Bonjour, Christy. How did you learn your photographic skills? Wonderful images accompany your great writing.
Well, thank you, Bob. I really appreciate that. I have to thank John Mark for that. When I started the blog, he said, always include a photo with your stories. And it really gave me a lot more work because you're working on a story and then you also need to pay attention to put a photo with it. And so, Bob, to answer your question, I think that just I had so much practice over. First of all, France is so beautiful. Beautiful. How could you not take a beautiful picture in France? I mean, first of all, just about everywhere you look is beautiful. It will be hard not to take a nice photo of France. But also, I think just 23 years of practicing for the blog has helped me to pay more attention, you know. And I think something I'd like to say, walking around all the time now with our smartphones, we always have a camera on us, and that's a good thing. We always have a camera, we can always capture the moment. And I'd like to have a nice fancy camera. What's that camera everybody wants, that fancy one? A Leica. Oh, I'd love to have a Leica camera, but you know, having these smartphones in our pockets, we can capture. A couple years ago, I walked to the beach. There were horses running through the water on our beach. Horses. There's a photo in my book of this. You know, right here in La Ciotat. It was amazing to wake up in the turquoise sea and there were horses in the water. So always have your phone. It's more the subject than it is, I think, talent. And the same goes for stories. I tell Jackie, you know, Jackie, don't worry about flowery language. Don't worry about a perfect vocabulary. It's just, do you have a story to tell? And it's the same with photography, I think.
I think we have one more question, and then we're going to close with a comment from your sister. And a big thank you for your instructional video about how to make a cake using a yogurt cup.
Oh,
You did it with Smokey the dog. And
oh, thank you.
and it stuck with me. I guess now we can all use a yogurt cup to what kind of yogurt cup, I guess.
You know, I can give you the recipe in 2 seconds. You get the yogurt cup, it's a plain yogurt, and that is your measuring cup. And it's you empty out that yogurt, and then it's 3, 2, 1. 3 cups farine, which is flour, 2 cups sugar, 1 cup oil, could be any kind of oil. I use olive oil because that's all we have in our house. And then you need something called poudre chimique, baking soda. And you mix that together and put it in the oven, and it's the best cake. So 3, 2, 1. 1 cup of plain yogurt, and that's your measure.
So the yogurt's included. You use yogurt in the cake as well. So it's not
Yes.
just the cup. All right, that's great. Yogurt, flour, sugar, and olive oil. That's a traditional olive oil cake. That sounds delicious. So on that
Yes.
note, I think we're running out of time. But your sister says, where I just lost it.
My sister wrote a question.
She wrote a
Oh.
comment. You know what? Some others have just popped up. Hang on a minute. Do you see where it went?
Oh, I have it here, Renee. Yeah, Heidi says, great interview,
Oh,
Christy. Thank you from your favorite sister Heidi in Denver, Colorado.
Oh. Thank you,
on that note,
Heidi.
an incredible thank you to you. This is being recorded. Everyone will receive a recording, and we're so grateful to you, Christy, and a big applause. And we can't wait for your next book. And thank you for sharing your time and all your family and your dog and your whole wonderful life in France. It's encouraging to us all.
Well, thank you, Renee. You've helped me so much to really get to know my book even better through this interview. You've been a great help. Everybody here is a mentor to me. Thank you, Margot. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Laura, for watching. Thank you. All these hearts. I can see everybody's names.
Just wonderful. We've never seen this before, Christy.
It's
We've never seen so
Gus,
much love.
Don, Kelly, Pamela, Heidi, Martine, Stephanie, Susan, Dawn,
Well,
Bill. Thank you so
big
much.
applause to you, and have
A
a wonderful
bientôt.
holiday. And we look
Bye,
forward to following
Laura.
your blog. Bye.
Thank you.